Hello. Hello, everyone. All right. Hello, my friend. Who else we got? Drop everything as soon as you start live. Just start dropping things, man. Start letting me know what your thoughts are, because we're going to get into a lot of different striker options today, including the one that we have just seen, basically confirmed by Fabrizio that we're still back and still in and around him, which, of course, is Jhon Duran, who I've got circled here. We're going to speak loads about him, and then, as you can probably tell with these numbers in this massive red box, we're going to speak about a host of different strikers, some of which have been linked, some of which I have came up with based on the criteria that I have set for the Chelsea striker. Again, this is nothing that I know. This is purely based on what I think works best with this squad makeup. So yeah, looking forward to this. So am I, Gary. Thank you for joining me again. And hello to Daniel as well. So, first of all, just give everybody a minute to type in the chat, let me know you're here, and then we'll get going. We shall see, Ravi. We shall see. Like I say, I'll give it one odd minute just to make sure people are in, and type in the chat just to let me know you're here. Also, smash the like, because that does help the stream get seen by as many other people, and of course, it really helps me out. Hello, David Anderson. Welcome to the stream. And of course, as well, just something to point out, the rest of these players don't pay too much attention. Yes, this is pretty much how I think we'd set up. I mean, probably not Mudryk to begin with, but eventually, hopefully. But ignore most of that because, like I say, this video is to speak about everyone within this box. That can include a bit of Jackson chat. Will include a bit of Nkunku chat, Duran, and then, as I said, lots of different options that we will speak about. And I'll also speak about any options that you guys want to discuss. So if there's any particular people, once we've gone through these, that you want me to take a little look at and have a little think about, I'm willing to do that as well. Don't think Jhon Duran is Chelsea level. Let's speak about Jhon Duran then. Let's start on him because he's the one that, as Fabrizio is basically saying, Chelsea are sniffing around that deal, right? And they're interested. First of all, I think the most important thing to note is he's not worth 40 million, right? And I'm seeing some people say that, of course, he's going to be not worth that, but that's going to be the value people are looking at, right? Because of what they paid for him. And they paid, I think they said around 15 million. I didn't actually look it up before this stream, which I probably should have done. I forgot to. But I'm pretty sure it's around 15 million they paid, right? So, of course, they're not going to want to sell him on a massively, like, on a big cheap. They're going to want to make some sort of turnover and bring some sort of money in for him. That being said, 40 million is steep either way. He's not broke into the team. Yes, he has Ollie Watkins ahead of him, so rightfully so. He hasn't broke into the team in that sense. There's a lot of things I like about him. And I am going to quickly, you won't be able to see this on the screen, but I'm going to read out the notes that I made when I was doing some work on Jhon Duran, because I think this will be interesting for people, right? And I also will have an article coming out in the next few days on London's First speaking about Jhon Duran, so look out for that. But where is it? Here it is. Right, here's the notes that I came up with when I was speaking about Jhon Duran. I can't see the chat at the minute either, so when I return to that screen, I'll look at the chat. But I'm just going to read them out normally. Stiff arm importance, strength, power to shield and stride away. So the one thing with Duran is that ability to almost use his offhand and that stiff arm to really shield his way from the ball. I think that's one of his key traits. I think when he's in stride, he's very good at getting that stiff arm out and across the body. He's good at doing that in and around the box as well. It can help him manipulate the ball. So I think that's something he's really good at. Is just his overall body manipulation, not necessarily just ball manipulation, which we'll speak about as well. His leap, he has got a good leap on him. Sometimes he can overdo it, and sometimes he jumps too early, which is something that I saw in quite a lot of the games I coded of him. He's athletic enough to sometimes to still make it work with his head. So the good thing is the actual raw aesthetics of his jump, his power, and his leap are all there. It's more so a timing issue that I noticed. But again, this comes with time and almost integration into a system where he knows who's the crosses are going to be from he gets into a rhythm of who's crossing and the way they're going to be crossed. But yeah, sometimes over jumps, sometimes jumps a bit early. But he's athletic enough to get to the ball still. He's also very left foot dominant. Now, I'll put this one in with this next. Where is it? I'll put these two together. So, like I say, he's very left footed dominant, but he's got a rocket of a left foot, right? So, his ball striking is probably the best part about him. It's through the roof. If you've probably seen some compilations about him already, in terms of like what you've seen through Twitter or TikTok, or whatever you view these things from, right? All the compilations that will be the first thing that you notice about Jhon Duran. He has got a rocket on him, and let me tell you, it is a rocket. His ball striking technique is superb. He's got a fast shooting motion, and the technique doesn't suffer from that shooting motion being so fast. The technique still stays thorough, but through the whole process. So he strikes the ball so cleanly. And again, the power he can generate behind a shot that takes less than a second to get out of his feet and hit is ridiculous. So it's, again, something that I always say, and I said this on Twitter earlier. I've got this literally earmarked in this. I've got it in block capitals on this notes page as well. Something I say about all strikers is ball striking will always win / ball striking will always prevail. And that's because Vlahovic is another example of that. I would have taken Vlahovic for these reasons again. I think when you get a player who can strike a ball that cleanly, and you're in a team, you're putting them in a team of players that are going to create the chances for them, and their job is to use that ball striking to put it in the back of the net. I think that's a good thing. I think that it will always win and it will always prevail, as I said. What else haven't I said? So the fast shooting motion, I've said. He's got a quick, powerful archetype. He is only 6'1", so I just saw somebody as I went onto the screen here. I'll put that up quickly. Isn't he shorter than Jackson? Wouldn't that cause an issue with heading? And again, we're going to speak about that, so I'm going to leave that on screen whilst I touch on it. So he's got a quick, powerful archetype, 6'1", of more of a combust profile, right? So he's a bit more, I call it dense, is how I talk about it. I know there's some other like buzzwords that people use, but it's a lot of players will bounce off of him. He's got that sort of like dense body style in the sense that players will just bounce off him. And yes, he's 6'1", but again, like I said, he's got a big leap on him. And Jackson's not small, right? Jackson's actually very good in terms of like his actual physical profiling type of a striker. It's just he's not great in the air when the ball does hit his head, and his positioning, it's not really his game because he was molded as a winger. Something else important about Duran, though, touching on that, is Duran was also sort of brought up as a winger. He in the academies days, he was basically being used as a winger. And then I'm pretty sure when Villa signed him, they also had sort of identified him as a winger / forward, but then it was actually there that he fully got basically pigeonholed into that forward position, which I see it because, like I said, I think his skill set does suit that. But in terms of the shortness, in terms of his heading ability, that no, because 6'1" isn't short, and also I think his timing and things are a bit, like I said, his timing is the issue, but his actual raw ability to, because Osimhen's only 6'1", right? 6'2" maybe, but he's not like he's not like 6'4", 6'5" like Haaland, Sesko. He's just really good in the air. He's an athlete, which is again what Duran does have. He's a very athletic, untapped sort of striker profile. So again, this is probably why I said untapped. Untapped potential, top end per 90 stats in good areas. We'll talk about this in a minute when I go onto his FBref profile. The main thing to take into account here, though, is of course per 90 stats can be misleading because Duran doesn't play 90 minutes a game. So they're very misleading in that sense. But the ones that he does rank highly in are ones that match the eye test when you watch him. So we'll speak about that in more detail. Defensive fight, maybe due to his lack of minutes, but he showed a lot of signs of that, having that hunger to win the ball back. Again, a lot of the time when he came on for Villa last season, has that bit of bite in him to track back. And again, Jackson has this too. But yeah, that's a good sign. Good enough to drop and link, then burst towards the box. Dropping in and linking in around here isn't his best asset, but he can do it. And then he's very quick to burst from there back towards the box. So he's not as capable as Jackson or Nkunku at doing this part of the game, I wouldn't say. but it's not like completely null and void. He can do it, and then he's very good when he does burst towards the box. So he's good in that sense. He can do that role. Often creates his own shooting angles on that left foot, sharp, swift movements. Again, like I said, very quick shooting motion and technique doesn't suffer. So when it comes to this, I'm going to liken the Swift. I'm not going to liken it to Aguero, but I'm going to use him as an example of somebody that people used to say that was like one of his best things. And I'm not even saying this is one of Duran's best things, but his ability to almost craft that extra little yard of space to get a shot away. Again, often on that left foot rather than his right, which can be an issue. I think he's very left foot dominant. Doesn't Very little do I see him craft an opportunity on his right for himself. And even when it comes to him, it looks like he's at least trying to forge it back onto that left. But yeah, in terms of how quickly he can move the ball to get a shot away off goal, I think that's a very good asset of his. He's box dominant in the sense of, again, using that stiff arm, his movement, and that aerial ability that he does possess, the power of somebody to have. He can be a box dominant type, and he's got a very dense profile. Like I said, his actual body archetype is very strong. And what was the word I used? I used dense, but I used a different word as well, didn't I? Combust. Sometimes he has the odd heavy touch. Again, that was another negative that I posted about him. I think sometimes he'll have like the odd heavy touch, but then sometimes because of his physical prowess, he would then, even that heavy touch, he'd sort of recover. So it wasn't the end of the world, but it was definitely something worth noting because I noted it in several of his games. So it's worth mentioning now that he's got the liability to have heavy touches, which again, if he's the only outlet in the team, could be an issue, but this is something that can be worked on. And I think the more minutes he gets being in that like focal point number 9, he's definitely got all the abilities around that to improve in that area. Again, his bend to shield the ball between two players. He's often he'll often put his back into one of the players, have his foot out in front to protect the ball. He's very good he can do that sort of job where, let's just do this. If he has a player here and a player here, he'll sort of back into this one, have the ball at his foot, but he's also got enough control to like use that stiff arm and control the ball with this player behind him. But then with this player coming towards him, he can still manipulate the ball with his feet. So he's got enough about him in that sense to manage those 1v2s situations, especially when they're coming from that angle. So that's something I noted as well. So a good fixture for a box dominant striker that you need. Composure in front of goal is very good. Often gives himself the second to look up and place with full trust in his ability on his left peg. Again, the confidence he has in that strike that he has, how natural it is to him. He often has that sort of second to look up. Again, just go look at his goals from last season. You can see it. He's so confident in that part of his game is so second to, like, in terms of doesn't have to think about that aspect. So it gives him that extra second to think about what finish works best. Some players excel in that, some players don't. Obviously, with some strikers, you think you want it to be more instinctual because then they don't have to think, and that can sometimes help them. But I think with Duran, he's got such ability with that finish that it does give him that half second to look up and pick, and often he will make the correct choice. One of his best stats, if you go on his FB ref profiles, is how well he excels above his XG, which I think, off the top of my head, it's in the 0.5 range. So he scores like 1 goal for every 2 shots, essentially, or every two. That isn't right, actually. Scrap that. That was bad maths on the go. But we'll get up his FB ref thing in a minute, and I'll tell you the exact stats. I'm pretty sure it's in the 0.5s. But he has that in him. And the last thing that I've put, which again was a bit of a negative, but this wasn't really something I coded. This was just something that was in my notes at the time, and I'm pretty sure I've seen a few people say it today again. I'm not quite sure who I saw it through on Twitter, but a few people have used pretty much these exact words, because I wrote down deemed immature and has some discipline issues. And again, this has kind of been said today. I'm not sure what the discipline issues are. Again, this was back in the time. This wasn't really from my analysis. This was just things that I'd heard, like, and seen. So that part was in my notes. Deemed immature, again, that was sort of something I'd seen. So these are in my notes from the Jhon Duran work I did when he was linked in January, and then I've watched him further throughout the season as well. And then, yeah, I've got that ball striking will always prevail in block capitals at the bottom. So let me quickly go back through the bits we've missed, and then we'll go back into it. Key traits. So yeah, we've touched on that. Definitely offers a different style to these two, in my opinion. was an update on Alvarez. I don't have any updates. I'm not like that's not the sort of thing I have. I don't have sources or anything. I purely work for like media outlets in terms of I'll work and write and create content based on tactics and player profiles and things that I can use the skill set that I have, which is obviously like watching football and actually analysing parts of the game. So in terms of an update on Alvarez, I know very little. So who knows? We'll have to wait and see. So excited to get in another one of your streams. Yes, man. Thank you so much for joining us here. Isn't he short? Yeah, we did that one. Batshuayi is another good example. He did have good ball striking. And again, he was a good ball striker in general. He was also very both-footed, something that I don't think Duran is yet. I think he's very left-foot dominant, as I said. But Batshuayi struggled in other aspects, I think. I think he was a weird one, Batshuayi, because he's one of those players that I think just something just didn't quite click, but the rest of it wasn't too bad. Like you say, like you've got it bang on here. I thought Batshuayi's ball striking was quite good. He had some clumsy moments, so maybe that didn't help him. But you're not wrong. You're not wrong at all. How often do you think Enzo would use Duran at Chelsea? And this is what we're going to get into about this. This is another reason I don't hate the idea of Duran. And you guys can tell me what you think about this. Duran is the type of signing where I think, at least in the first season, you don't have to force him into the team every single game. Jackson can be the starting number 9 when he's fit. Nkunku, if Maresca wants to play him here, because as we've said again in previous streams and videos, Nkunku has a bit of a placement issue in the sense of he can play all of these roles, but I don't quite know where he will fit into the team ahead of other players. So this is something to keep an eye on. So in that sense, Nkunku can do this. So you've then got these two players that can feature in that area too. So by doing that, Duran isn't the sort of signing that takes minutes away, whereas an Osimhen, again, I'm going to use him as an example because he's not on the table now, or Sesko, who's just signed a new deal. That sort of player may have blocked Jackson minutes, may have blocked Nkunku minutes. So that's another reason I think Duran is an option. And then to answer the question of how often do I think Enzo would use him, again, it completely depends on what he wants from a game. And I think that would help in the sense of being able to utilize which player in which systems. Because Duran, like I say, I don't think he'd want to be, not, he wouldn't want to be a starter straight away, but I don't think he'd, like, what's the word I'm looking for? I don't think he would push it to the point where Jackson has to be forced out. So Jackson would start these games. And then if we're still struggling with 60, 70 minutes on the clock, you bring on a different type of striker in Duran, where you can get more crosses into the box, especially against low blocks, and he gives you something different. And you know that if he gets that chance, he's very clinical, so there's a good chance he finishes it. I think that's a great 3 to have up front as options. I really do. And I think it's also, I think why I'm more open to it than other people are, and don't get me wrong, I don't think it's the most inspiring deal of all time, but I think it's because I like Jackson a lot and I like the skill set that he possesses. I think if you give Jackson a lot of time as that main number 9 this summer, I think he can even improve further upon what he's done. So in that sense of having these 3, they offer you different things, different moments, and it can be very much based on form. If Duran smashes it and he's ahead of Jackson in the pecking order at some point, then that's how it goes. Jackson at that point would have to win his spot back, and Duran is to start at number 9 from there. And that's a good point to be at, where 2 players are more or less on the same playing field. I mean, Jackson obviously would start ahead of Duran in the pecking order, but it's a good little position to be in, really. Whereas Sesko coming in, Sesko probably would have, maybe for the first few weeks, Jackson could have started because he'd been more acclimatised in the squad, but Sesko pretty much for that fee would have had to go straight in. So again, Duran, I don't mind at all. It's just the fee that he definitely needs to. You can't. I still think you can't pay 40 million. And I'm one of the people that's actually said a lot about. Even in January, I was kind of on the train of, if you can sell Broja and bring in Duran, I think that's positive business. I think getting rid of one player in Broja and bringing in Duran, if you can do that sort of deal, I don't think that's bad. I think that is decent. But having said that, 40 million is too much. You can't pay that. So if you can get Duran down to, say, 30, 25 to 30, then I'm not against that. If you then spend that money in other areas, we're talking about Elise on the right, we're talking about right centre-back if Fofana's injured. These sorts of players, if you put that money elsewhere and it makes sense to do so, and then you still end up with these three as your options up front. I think that's very viable. Really enjoying the streams and videos where I keep it up. Thank you so much, man. That means a lot. Really appreciated the support, because the support, by the way, has been ridiculous on these last few weeks in videos and streams. It's just been crazy. So if you could just smash a like on this stream again, that would be massively appreciated. It helps get more people in. We've got 60 viewers at the minute, and it's been fluctuating between 50 and 60, I'm pretty sure, for the last 15 minutes. So that is absolutely ridiculous. I can't believe that. Smash a like, and let's just try to get this up to 100 likes by the end. So I'm going to keep going and talking about it, because like I say, I've got so many more options to speak about. But yeah, really appreciate the support. Like I said, we'll look in a minute at the stats. I'm pretty sure Duran's is quite a lot higher than Solanke's per 90 in terms of XG over performance. But like I also said earlier, Solanke starts games, Duran doesn't. So those per 90 stats can be a little bit hit and miss. Dobbic's available for 40 as well, apparently, but I guess the board wants to buy another teenager. Yeah, and I said this too. I tweeted this earlier. Dovbyk was, if you watched my stream a few days ago, Dovbyk was in my choices. I wanted Dovbyk behind Sesko, but he would have been one of my next choices for that reason exactly. He's not too much money. He's an experienced goal scorer in the sense that this last season just gone, he was the top goal scorer in the Liga. He offers the box threat that I'm talking about. He offers that same sort of physical profile. So yeah, I agree. But that doesn't fit with what they want to do. So if they're going to go and spend 30 million on Duran, I think if it's 30 million, not 40, again, I can see where it will work. And what people then have to view is, if Duran is signed, you are going for Jackson as your number. He's your main. You're giving Jackson this season to cement that number 9 spot. So don't look at it as Duran is coming in as the number 9 signing. He is going to propel Chelsea forwards. Duran will merely be another option who offers something different, but Jackson stays as the starting number 9 to begin with. So there you go. That's how I see it. And again, this is completely correct. I think they'll both improve massively, and they both have very different skill sets, which I like. Yes, this is true. I'll get to this in a sec. Let me get to these bits. Good to be in your stream. How is he different to Datro Fofana? He's not inspiring as a Chelsea fan, to be honest. We need players to push the ones we already have. And again, that I rate Duran higher than I rate Datro Fofana. I think Datro Fofana's he's a bit of an odd tool set. I think his ball striking isn't as good, anywhere near as good as Duran's. He's not got that same physical profile. He's quick in the channels. Again, he sort of offers more similar to Jackson than he offers in differences to Jackson. He had some good games for Burnley, and I didn't mind the signing at 10 million. I genuinely think you can flip Datro for more money than what you signed him for. So in that sense, it's not a bad buy. But Duran is better, in my opinion. Need a pure goal scorer who can guarantee goals. And again, you're not wrong, but if you've got Jackson who improves again, you've got Nkunku who barely played last season and he comes back and starts offering goals, and you sign Duran who can offer goals, and then you get more output from your wingers. So if Elise signs, or if Sterling has a good season off the left, or Mudryk, but Sterling under Maresca, then goals do start to pop from other places. And I do think Palmer will have a less of a goal scoring year, but more of an assist type season from that number 8 role. I still think he'll score a lot of goals, but I think you'll start to see a bit more of a creative version of Palmer in there. And again, this is why I want this 3rd edition up front to be that type of player where they have that box dominance and aerial ability, because when Palmer's in these half spaces, this is exactly the ball that I want going in. I want that sort of ball from that half space, which you saw it for England the other day into Kane, right? Duran, he'll attack that. And again, the other Dovbyk, for example, he's not going to be mentioned in this video because I did see today that there was options for him to go to Atletico. But again, he's somebody I've mentioned throughout the whole, pretty much since January. He would do that too. So that's why I want that profile as the 3rd profile in this squad behind Jackson and Nkunku, because I think they offer different things, and then that profile has to offer something different whilst also improving aspects of the squad around it. If Duran was 5 to 10 million, it's a different story for me, but I don't think he's the difference between Europa and Champs this season. And again, this season, no, probably not. But could Jackson look at it more like this. Could giving Jackson the confidence that he is the main man up front, could that propel you if he has an even better season than he did this season? And then on top of that, you add a few Duran goals and his abilities that Jackson doesn't have in low block games. Can that make a difference? I would argue. I don't know what's just happened to Jackson there with these dots on the outside. I didn't mean to do that, but hey ho. I think that can make a difference. But yeah, I get it. 40 million, as you've said here. No, you can't pay 40 million because they just won't be. No matter what, the pressure's on by them. Yes, call us Chelsea podcast. Thank you very much. Hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. That does actually really help me out more than you guys even know. Duran's quite good from what I watched. 35 million is good. Again, 30 million is probably what I'd look at if you can budge them down. I feel like 40 million, I think even they know that sort of I feel like that maybe is a media thing where they're trying to drive his price. I think they take 30, and I think that's the closer to 30 it is. I would be shocked if it's around 40. I would be shocked if that went around there. So let's see. Do you think David or Whispers can be good enough? Whispers is very raw again. I think he's 3 years off minimum. I think I've liked little bits that I've seen, but yeah, I'm not sure. Washington, again, from little bits I've seen, not particularly. But I don't think he was as worthy of a signing as the rest of the like South American sort of scout missions that we've had. But maybe I've just not seen enough of him. The hype for him was there. I hadn't done much work on him before he joined Chelsea, and since he's joined, I've only watched a few of his games for the under-21s, and like obviously the few times that he came off the bench for little 5-minute cameos. But yeah, I'm not 100% sure on those. I think Nico will do well as well, 100%. Yeah, around 25 million. Like maybe you can get 25 plus 5. Again, that's not the end of the world. I don't think that's terrible. But again, I think you have to start looking at this. Is Duran will not be signed as the main number one. If you are signing Duran, you are more so showing that Jackson can essentially be the main number 9. Jackson is really a winger, need a pure striker instincts. And again, yeah, I personally think Jackson is a striker, right, more than a winger. But I understand what you mean in the sense he has a lot of winger qualities as a striker, and what he doesn't have is that same box dominance that an out and out pure striker instinctual striker has. Which is why Duran makes a bit of sense in that sense. I'm not even saying Duran's the main choice, as I'm going to say when I go to these people. I'm going to say exactly why I'm aiming for that sort of. You'll see a theme when I'm talking about these players, okay, which we'll get onto in a minute. Do you normally share the link for us to share our opinions? How do you mean the link? If you like, whenever you guys type in the chat about your opinions, I'll bring them up as I'm doing here like this, and then talk about them. So that in that sense, yeah, I bring them up. I don't know what you mean by link. Is that what you meant? Tammy Abraham thought should be cheaper than Solanke and a good. Tammy again for me. I think he's a bit different in the sense of he's tall, but he's not. He doesn't quite have the same like aerial. He's not strong enough to sort of warrant that, and he's been injured for a while too. So as much as I had a lot of respect for Tammy at the club, and I loved Tammy like when he was here, but probably not worth right now going back in. And again, he's older now, so the board would probably rather look a bit younger than Tammy to somebody who could have higher potential than Tammy. StreamYard link. So I haven't as of yet, but I am going to be doing this very soon. I'm going to start getting fans on and start getting some collabs. So stay tuned for that. Jackson runs the channel well, doesn't necessarily mean he's better outright. Yeah, 100% agree. Does buying Duran pretty much seal our scope for buying another forward? A striker, yes. I think if you sign Duran, you like I say, you're committing to these 3 for the season. Long term, I don't think so. Long term, I think there'd still be room to acquire another one if Jackson doesn't then explode this season, not explode, but if he doesn't then have another improvement season, then people might start to look at him. What's his future? Has Duran done well? And again, I'm not saying this is what I would do. In terms of Jack, like I'm not saying if Jackson doesn't have a good season this year, I would sell him. That's not what I'm saying. But it doesn't completely rule out the signing of another striker next summer if Sesko, for example, is available in a few summers' time. It doesn't rule that out if you sign Duran. Don't know if you're doing the midfield today. Yeah, I'm going to do the midfield another day. My quick thoughts on Santos staying, I think pretty much is exactly what people have said about it. I think he can play the 6 and the 8 extremely well. I think he'll get good minutes, hopefully with the Conference League. I really rate Santos. He's one of the players we've signed that I really like in terms of those like Cassidy, Washington, Santos, Ukachukwu. Santos is probably the one I rate highest. So, yeah, we'll put that there. Grassi, and then we got Sesko next year is the way for me. Again, we're going to speak about Grassi. He's one of these players. We'll speak about him very soon. Got to study calculus in this man streaming. Hey man, I appreciate the support, but if you got to study, you need to study, man. So head off and get that studying done, and then because this will be up as a video after anyway, so then you can rewatch. So hey, if you need to study, you need to study. Okay. So I've read you the notes on Duran. That's one thing I wanted to get out of the way. Now, quickly, I'm going to mention the stats that he's in the top 99 percentile for that I wanted to say. So, 62.5% of aerials won is in the 99 percentile on FBref. So this means he's basically in the top 1% of players in his position for this stat. And again, this is per 90, so this is skewered. I have to put that out there. These are skewered stats because he's only played 475 minutes in the last year in that. I'm pretty sure that's what it says here. That might not be completely accurate. That's what it says that I'm reading. So obviously bear in mind per 90 stats change because of that, whereas other players that play more won't be so much. So 62.5% of aerials won, which is 3.79 per 91 and 2.27 lost. He then also, where's the other one I wanted to mention? This isn't top 99%. Oh no, it is top 99%. Let me find shooting. So he's at plus 0.57 in terms of goals minus XG. So this is again in the top 1%. So in this sense, he's very clinical. Again, he's a top level like shooter. He gets 3.79 shots away per 90. This is the top 91%. 1.33 shots on target per 90. This is shooting volume as well that you need from a player like him. He's not afraid to let that left foot go. He will get shots on target. He will score goals, and he is clinical. So all of those are important, like I said, aspects to say. And they're all top 99%. Can they improve even further? Obviously, a lot of them won't be in the top 99% once he gets more minutes, and those 90 minutes become 90 minutes consistently. So those stats will then naturally drop off and tail. But yeah, they are worth looking at in the sense of, can he take another jump? Can those shots become more? Because if you're scoring at that clip of a 0.57 minus 0.57, then sorry, I just saw something in the chat and it threw me off. If you're scoring at that clip, if you just give him those chances in a top level team and you trust the ability he has, the numbers become less prevalent. And what becomes more prevalent is the actions. So you're actually at that point analysing what actions he can produce rather than the stats and the numbers that come with it. So that's why I don't mind those ideas of Duran, but I think something I need to keep mentioning is 40 million is too much. So when I'm saying all this about Duran and saying that I'm not as negative about him as some are, and again, you've said that here, he strikes the ball so well. This is 100% true. Yeah, it's important to note I'm not saying he's a good buy for 40 million. I'm just saying I don't mind him as a player. What are your thoughts about Enzo Maresca? Go and check out my Enzo Maresca video. It's my highest viewed video on the channel, 41k, which is absolutely ridiculous in itself. But go watch that because that has every breakdown in it. And then I've got a few streams about it too, which I touch on loads of different things. It's too much to get into, but I've got literally a video that touches on every single aspect of it quite well, I'd say. So go watch that for more information on that. And yes, I did see this actually the other day. Might have even been today or yesterday. I saw this that he was top of the list. I did see that, and I think that's crazy. But at the same time, I like Jackson a lot, so I think giving him that confidence to go in as the next season's main man, you might see an even better version. Right, I'm going to type these two on screen now. Sorry if you can hear my keyboard, but so these are the two that we're going to speak about now. So the two that have been linked again. Solanke, a few links come out today. I think it was a matter of time before that came out, coming from Cobham, having a good season, apparently having the 65 million release clause. He was always going to be somewhat speculated. And Grassi, who hasn't really been speculated, but at that price where I think it's below 20 million, that release clause, it's like 17.5 or something. It'd be silly to not even think about that, to not go near that sort of deal, because again, what he offers you for that price. If you're talking 40 million for Duran or 17 odd million for Grassi, which one, like Grassi easily is the better deal value for money. Of course, sell on value, Grassi's 28, Duran's 21, 20/21, I think. So that's what they're looking at, and that's what they take into account when they're deciding where to put this money. But yeah, let's talk about these two. So I'm gonna go over Solanke fairly quickly, because I do think 65 million for Solanke, as good as he is, as good as a season he's had, I think at the age of 26, I think that he's not quite what you need to go for. Again, he's tall, but I wouldn't say he's box dominant. I think he's 6'2", but he's not exactly box dominant. He's not exactly the most strong. He's quite again, similar sort of build to Jackson in that sense. So he's not like massive. He's not the strongest, and he's not the tallest, but he sort of makes do with it. His aerials one is actually 2.63 per game. Again, he's clinical in front of goal. So somebody asked earlier about his XG and who's more clinical. And again, Duran's is based on less of a what's the word? Less of a sample size. That's the word. So what Solanke's is minus 0.02. So it's in the 46th percentile for standards among other forwards. So again, not particularly clinical, still clinical enough with the amount that because again, you're looking at somebody who plays a lot more minutes, takes a lot more shots on goal. And again, he's the focal point for Bournemouth. So those numbers are going to be less because he has to take on more responsibility. But yeah, that's, if somebody asked earlier, that's the answer about that. So let me know what you think about Solanke. Thank you for the sub, man. And you would take Solanke over Duran at 65 million. So if you're saying 65 million for Solanke, let's say 35 for Duran, because I don't think you're going to pay 40. Which one of just those two to begin with would you take? 65, 35? Let me know out those two. And then we'll speak about Grassi, who is, of course, the good value for money option. I think a lot of people know this. Just these two. Which one? 35 for Duran, 65 for Solanke. Put it in the chat. The market's so inflated. Imagine Solanke for 65 million. What do you think about Gallagher with Santos staying? It's obvious the board ain't planning. Yeah, and I've said this as well from the get-go. I don't think they'd planned with him from the start. I think they'd planned against it the second they signed Lavia, and it's just gone against them that he had a good season. So now that he's had a good season, they don't know what to do, and they're a bit stuck in the sense of they do know what to do. They want to sell him, but they're trying to navigate it in a way that it doesn't bring as much backlash. So yeah, I think Gallagher's gone. Whether that helps in the Duran deal, who knows? Whether he goes somewhere else, who knows? I'd rather him go Villa than Spurs, but of course I'd rather him go Atletico than either of those to get him out of the league so that he didn't hurt us in the Prem. But yeah, 35 Duran 35 on the rise over Solanke 65 on the decline. You would think, yeah. I mean, Solanke's coming into his prime years, so you'd maybe not think he declines in quality straight away. Maybe provides more of an instant boost. But in terms of value, yeah, you're looking at a rise maybe on Duran. If he hits though, because right, 35 million is still not exactly cheap, still not punt money. It's not like you're buying a Dacho Fofana for 10 million and knowing you can probably flip him even if he doesn't do much over those years just because of his age. Duran 35. So yeah, the common consensus is Solanke at 65, too much money. And I agree with that, even though I don't mind him as a player. And I can see him ending up. Do you know where I think he'll end up this summer? I think he'll go to Tottenham. I just have that feeling. So we'll see. Again, it's a lot of money though, because they have bought Richarlison for what, 60 not long ago, like a season or so. So, but I can see it. Chelsea ain't going for older players 25 over. Yeah, again, they're not really, are they? So, which again is Solanke 26, Grassi 28. So let's quickly talk about Grassi. Again, I don't think I had to touch too much on him. He's 28 years old, 6'1", his goal scoring records are ridiculous. He's actually better in the air than a lot give him credit for. He's 2.65 aerials, 1 per 90. His goal scoring numbers and like just shot numbers, they're all in the top 90%. You're looking at somebody who scores 0.98 goals per 90. He takes 3.59 shots per 90. And that in itself is just crazy because like that shooting volume as a striker, and if you just look at his stats, they're just crazy. Again, plus 0.29 for goals minus XG, which again is 90 in the 98th percentile. So you're looking at Duran, who I said was in the top 99 percentile. You look, Grassi's only a percent off, and he plays way more minutes, and he's cheaper, but he's older. So sell on value is the clause there. But if you're looking at just these two, which one is it more? And the thing with Grassi is why it would make so much sense as well, because when I'm saying Duran doesn't block the pathway, neither does Grassi, because say that is Grassi, he starts a lot of games. Jackson still plays decent minutes off the bench, still starts some, still plays all the cup games, for example. And Grassi plays as your main league striker for the first season. By then he's 29, so you paid 17 good, good decent price, 17 million or to 20 million, whatever it is. He has 2-3 years at the club where eventually Jackson becomes the starter again anyway. It doesn't block any pathway. And yes, it's 17 million down the drain that they won't get back because he won't have a sell on value. But it's clever business. And that's my main issue with it, is because I actually don't mind the idea. I don't mind their process in terms of looking at players and going for younger players in certain areas. I don't mind that process. But in certain aspects, if a deal like this comes around, Grassi at 17 million, I don't see how they can't identify that as still good business just because it isn't a youngster they can sell on. It's not like you're even saying to go and buy Harry Kane, for example, an 100 million player who is in their like 30s, or like here's another example, like Lukaku when they went and signed Lukaku. Before, obviously, this was a different ownership that was under Abramovich. But like when you signed Lukaku, it's not like you're saying to go and sign an older player for the top end money. This is 17 million. That's worth it for what you'll get from him in the long run without blocking pathways. So I think that's a very savvy deal that a lot of people are missing out. I say a lot of people, the Chelsea higher ups are missing out on that. Let me know what you think of Grassi in the chat. I would be surprised if a lot of you weren't saying that you think it's a good deal, even if you don't know much about him, even if you just know like the bare minimum facts and you've seen him play it once or twice. I think it's 17 million, pretty much. You can tell that that's not a bad investment. So whilst you type in your thoughts on Grassi, I'm going to type number 23. We'll do number 22 because this is a more known name. And then the other three that I'm going to do. So let's do this. Victor Boniface. Okay. I'm going to move these out here. I'm going to keep these three here. And then once I do that, I'm going to get rid of those three. I'm going to talk about my three. So these three that we're going to talk about soon are my choices. Not choices that I've seen linked, not choices that I have news on, but they're just a bit of wild card options that I want to speak about. Boniface is an option that has been linked in the past. Again, no links on him lately, no information, but I'm going to speak about him because he fits this mould of striker. So let's talk about Boniface. Again, 0.65 goals per 90, wins 1.64 aerials, which isn't actually as good, but he also had quite a few injuries this season. His minutes haven't been as good because of that. I think he played 23 games in the Bundesliga, still scored like 14 goals. Underperformed his XG by 0.05. But again, so it wasn't his best season. But again, he still scored 0.89 goals per 90 or 0.65 non-penalty goals. So yeah, he's one of those players. He takes a lot of shots as well. 4.63 shots. So that's even higher than Grassi, who I was saying is a high volume shooter. This is even higher volume. 1.82 of those being on target, which is in the top 96%. So he's fairly decent in that aspect. 0.23 penalty kicks per 90 forced. So wins penalties due to that, again, that body type, that bully type player. He is strong. I think, is he 6'3", 6'2.5", it says here. So I think he's on the bigger side in terms of taller, but he's also bulky. He's one of those bully type strikers. So he does offer you a lot of those things that I've spoke about that you need. Creates 3.14 shot creating actions per 90, which is again quite good. So yeah, 5.14 take-ons attempted per 90 as well. So he's not bad with the ball at his feet, and he will attempt those. Haven't done loads of work on Boniface this season, but I've done work on Leverkusen. So of course I've sort of had bits around with him. Like I've watched games of him when I was studying Leverkusen, doing bits for them or about them, not for them, obviously. So yeah, he's another option. What do you think of Boniface? My value, what would people say? I would say to get Boniface out of Leverkusen, he's not one of the prized assets, right? So if they're trying to keep hold of players like Wirtz, Frimpong for a bit longer, I wouldn't be surprised if you could poach a Boniface for 50 to 60, which I think is better value than Solanke, worse value than Grassi, like in terms of what you're getting. What would you guys say about that? So if I then give you the choice, so we kind of said Solanke isn't the option if you're going to, because they said Duran, you guys said Duran was a better option, so we're going to remove Solanke. If I now give you Duran, 35 million, Grassi, 17.5 million, Boniface, let's say 55 million. Of these three, which you take him? Duran, 35, Grassi, 17.5, Boniface, 55. What would you take? Literally go through these quick. Yeah, you said about Grassi. That was before I've asked this question, but I'll get it back up if you reply again. Can imagine Grassi to be a good choice at that price, especially with additional European conference. Yeah, again, easier to spread minutes. So yeah, agree. It's obvious Alvarez deal isn't feasible with the board planned on signing below 25. It's obviously Duran, which is Elise deal taking so long. Why is the Elise deal taking so long? No, it's you say so long, and the thing is, like, I kind of get it because it's been like because like the rumors started coming out and it's people are saying that it's progressing. It seems long, but you got to remember the transfer window's not even open yet, so it may seem long, but this is all speculative at the minute. And if things are going on in the background, this is good signs before the window's even open. So I wouldn't worry about that yet. Like I say, if you get Elise and then you sign one of these sort of strikers that I'm talking about, I'm fairly happy with that anyway. I get it as long as you then invest. If you go for Duran instead of Boniface or a more expensive option, if you go for Duran and get him for 30 to 35 million, as long as you then reinvest that money elsewhere, so into a right centre back, into a left back / left centre back hybrid like a Calafiori or which again he might be going Juve, but stuff like that. Then yeah, then it's not the end of the world to spend 30 there, but it depends where you reinvest that money. Like I said. Because if they are saying that if they go and get just Duran and Elise, Elise is the big one at that point, isn't it? If you go and get a Duran, you then need to secure Elise. One, to make the fans happy. Two, to add a little bit more proven firepower to the attack that will hit the ground running or should hit the ground running. But yeah, so let me quickly. Hello, Lord Forkiller. Grassi, regardless, is your choice. Grassi, Duran, Boniface in that order for you, Stefan. Again, don't hate that. You said Duran as well at that price. So people don't mind the idea. Duran might end up as the main number 9 because he finished better than Jackson, considering we have a lot of creative players around him. And again, and that's something that they probably are. They're probably, if I was to put the hat on of the directors in this sense, I think the reason they're looking at Duran as an option is because they're thinking they've seen his ball striking, they've seen his potential in like his physical potential and the body archetype that he has, and they are thinking put this sort of player with better players around him and allow him to focus on the areas that he excels in. Will he then become specialist in that area? Can he become a specialist striker? That's where they'll be looking at him, I think. Again, 40 million to take the gamble that he will be your specialist for that sort of area of the pitch and what you want from him in terms of box dominance. That's slightly risky. But again, I kind of see it and I kind of don't. I'm in two heads about it because I like the player, but I don't like the fee. So again, I think it's different. Boniface. Was that you saying that you take Boniface ahead of anyone else for those areas? All things considered, Grassi seems a good choice. 27, 28, and it gives assurances that you can slot in for Jackson. Only con is you may go to AFCON along with Jackson. So yeah, of course that's not next season, but yeah, the season after it could pose an issue. That would maybe mean Nkunku has to be, because that's the thing, we've got Nkunku here, right? So he's another option for this. I could see, as I said at the start of the stream, this is very much an option that Nkunku plays here. So if Nkunku starts playing there and Jackson starts playing there, Duran does purely become as and when striker and in cup games, etc. So it's not the end of the world. If we are getting, because I don't even think we needed a striker this summer. I think it's more so the fact that you need to put a body in here, because if one of these two gets injured, you need to have someone in there. I think if these were your main two striker options, even if it was Broja, which again he's not, he's being sold, but even if Broja was like your third choice striker and he sat on the bench and he was just there to do that, it wouldn't have been the end of the world, because these two will play. I think they'll both would play well as Maresca strikers. But I think adding Duran, if you're getting rid of Broja, that's an improvement, and it adds things that you don't already have. And I don't even mind Broja. I think he's a good player. I think he's got very good qualities. I think the injury hampered him. But I think Broja needs more sustained minutes to get back to that level. I think Duran has a lot of because he hasn't had that injury, and I think he's ready to explode. He would be able to do it from a less minutes point of view to begin with, and then try to take his opportunity as in when it comes. 54 people in here right now. I'm going to quickly refresh, see how many likes we've got, because I haven't done that at all since we started. Everybody that's in here that hasn't already pressed a like, please do smash the like. We're on 31 likes. 50 people in here. Can we get to 50 likes? That would be absolutely phenomenal. So I'm going to refresh that, try and get to 50 likes. I'm going to carry on speaking for a bit, but please do smash the like, as it will really help me out. And it helps, like I say, it gets the channel spread much wider and just helps everything. It helps me to be able to provide better content in the long term. So where were we? So you said about a swap deal, and again underneath you've also said about the swap deal for Gallagher. No, I don't, because I think you can get more for Gallagher. I think you can, and again, you want that Gallagher money on the books. So if anything, if it was going to be done, it would probably be done in two separate transactions. It would be they pay for Gallagher, that gives Chelsea the pure profit on the books, and then you go and make a payment for Duran for a bit less. So hopefully, maybe Gallagher could be used in a sense to sweeten the deal. So they grab Gallagher for, I don't know, 55, even though we'll say 50, because that seems to be the quoted price. And then you go and pick up Duran, if that means they knock their price from 40 to 30. In that sense of looking at it, which is basically, you've said, obviously the 20 million plus Gallagher, or the 20 million plus Duran for Gallagher, which is an equation of 50 million. It's not bad. It's not a bad deal. But again, like I said, I think it would be two separate transactions. So it would be seen as 50 for Gallagher, 30 for Duran. And 30 for Duran, as much, again, I don't think it's great value. But yeah, I think that's not the end of the world to spend 30 on him and take the gamble if you can't get in a first team striker that's going to take over from Jackson. If you can pay 30 for Duran, Jackson becomes number one, Duran plays second fiddle, and Nkunku gets minutes everywhere. Oh, I don't know what I did there. Then that works. Spreading the goals across the front line, yeah, I said that as well. I agree. If Jackson scores 15, Duran scores 10, yeah, that'd be brilliant, wouldn't it? That would be brilliant, because that would mean Duran's getting more goals and he's excelling further than what we bought him at. Jackson had a similar-ish season with maybe less minutes because Duran rotating. If that's just in the Prem and they have good performances in other competitions as well, I'd be happy with that. Biggest concern is the defence, and this is what I mean. I'm not going to touch on it in big detail and how we can minimise chances. Go watch the video I did on Maresca, and as well, go watch, I think it was my first live stream, I spoke about the defence more. I believe it was that. If not, then definitely check out the Maresca video on the channel, because that speaks about all this stuff in more detail in terms of defence. But I think the main thing is, if you go for Duran, you have to then go and sort of put some money into one of these areas instead. So here or here, you get a left back / left centre back hybrid, Calafiori, Hincapi. These are just examples. I'm not saying these are going to be the ones, but that area, or right centre back, so like a Diamande, a Araujo. that area. Again, not particular on the names. I like Diamande a lot, but I'm not even saying that exact. But I'm just saying those profiles. Instead of Duran, why not try for a younger South American talent? Again, because I think you've already sort of done that in the striker area in Washington. It depends whether they and I don't even necessarily rate Washington that highly. Again, haven't done loads of work on him, but I think at this point you at least want to get somebody that you somewhat trust to do that role. Because and like I say, they clearly like the raw talent of Duran, and I do too. Like I say, I'm a fan of the player, just not necessarily the price. So it depends what you can do. And I understand them being interested. Let's see what price comes out when they actually go in. Because even though they're quoting 40 million, there's nothing to say they won't test the hand at 20, come to an agreement at 25 plus 5, which equates to 30, the plus 5 being performance based. At that point, I don't think many people are moaning. Again, some people will probably be annoyed that we haven't gone for like an Osimhen, or again, who was my first choice, or Gyökeres, or people like that. Not for me. And I'm sorry, I've skipped a few because I've seen this. And again, not for me because I think he's a good finisher, but he doesn't offer that box prowess and aerial ability that I want to combine with these other two strikers. I'm wanting this circle, this addition, to add something different than I get from these two, which is why I'm not necessarily wanting Gyökeres in there, because I want something different. Someone like Koundé or Araujo would be perfect. Yeah, agree. Or maybe not Koundé, because I think you still need a bit of height in those areas. Araujo I'd love there. Diamande I'd love there. And Koundé had a struggling season, and he kind of rejected us in the photo. Not reject. It was like a bit of a rejected, bit of a. We sort of like removed the carpet from his feet apparently as well. With Tuchel, there was some weird things with that, but I wouldn't go for Koundé. But Araujo I like a lot. Colwill, because of his 1v1 defending. I don't mind his 1v1 defending, personally. I don't think it's as bad as is made to look. I think he had some moments when he was at left back, isolated with a winger, but again, that was a lot of the time with when he was facing up and he wasn't able to be as aggressive because he had the lines were a lot wider than they should be. So I think he got exposed a bit. Right, we spoke about Grassi, we spoke about Boniface. Now, let's talk about my 3 wild cards. Any guesses for the 3 wild cards? I'll say one of them is a younger player. When I say young, I think he's 23, but he's a younger player. And then the other 2 are a bit older. One being 28, so again, unlikely. One being 25. Any guesses for who the wild cards might be? Dovbyk was one of my choices before, but I've not got him on screen now because of the Atletico news. Xerxes, again, I like him, but he's not one of the choices. Schick, no, not one of them either. Give it one more second for a few guesses. I'm going to refresh the stream, see how many likes we're on as well. 39 likes, we're 11 away from the 50. Can we please smash the like button to get to 50 likes? That would be perfect. No, none of these either. Solanke we spoke about earlier, so you must have just missed it. But we spoke about him. I don't think it's worth at 65 million. I don't think he adds different profile. Solanke, Vardy, Mbappe, imagine. How good would that be? Unfortunately not. So, I'm going to type them one at a time. Let's start with... Who should I say first? Gyökeres, no Gyökeres either, but again, I think he offers something different. I think he offers something too similar to Jackson. Jonathan David, no. So this is the first one. This is the one that I think is most unlikely, so that's why I've typed him first. Alan Shearer, yes, we'll speak about him soon. Sorloth, 28 years old. Talk about box dominant. This is exactly what I'm talking about. Different profile, 28 years old, doesn't block a pathway, can play. He's comes off the bench against low blocks, offers you that sort of Giroud-esque someone to aim at in the box. Jackson's still, for me, the first choice in that scenario, but you've got options to switch things up. Not your typical Maresca type, but in this, like, he's not going to thrive more than Jackson or Nkunku in that role, but he is different and he offers a different aspect. Again, it's so unrealistic, which is why I'm speaking about him just broadly. But I like that as an option. Not going to happen, though, right? but he offers that box dominance. He is 6'5", I believe. I might be wrong there. Vlahovic, again, another one that I really liked. Before Jackson had sort of excelled, and now I don't think I'd pick Vlahovic over the Jackson minutes that you can give for the money it would cost. So it all sounds like something you would find in Dungeons and Dragons. Oh, okay. And that brings me on to my next one. So great guess, Rajesh, because Skamaka was my other choice. So smashed it for these guys. Everybody putting this in the chat. And he was the 25-year-old that I was referring to. So, of course, he's been in the league already, had a few injury issues at West Ham, but he's lit it up for Atlanta this year. Let's make it happen. Let's start the prop here. And yeah, this is another option, another point, sorry, to put into account. I don't see that, but that wouldn't surprise me. I didn't see it, but that wouldn't surprise me why he left. And again, this is why these are unlikely options. These are just ones that I like the profile of. Skamaka offers exactly the same as what I'm saying. He's a 6'5" striker. He offers that box dominance in terms of a body in the box. He's different to what we've already got here and here. He's played in England, again, not to the highest level because it didn't go so well, but he's done it. And he's been really good for Atlanta this year. He's probably going to be the starting striker for Italy at the Euros, unless it's Raspadori, but I think they'll go with Skamaka. Could even excel there. I really like Skamaka. I think he's really good. I think if anything, he's going to continue to excel next season at Atlanta if he stays there. And yeah, he would be my other wild card shot in terms of these. And Skamaka was somebody I wanted before he left to go to West Ham, by the way. Like, maybe not at Chelsea, actually, when I say wanted, but he was somebody I rated highly when he was at, I think it was Sassuolo before West Ham, I'm pretty sure. Memory is really bad, but I'm pretty sure it's Sassuolo. But so these two of those options, that they're a bit older and they're not necessarily likely, but they're the types of signings that I think offer something different to these archetypes of Jackson and Kunku, and it would make sense for the makeup of the squad. Isaac would cost too much money. Again, if you could get Isaac, imagine. That would be brilliant. But not going to happen. But, I mean, that would be I think he's class. And again, you said it too. Why not give that to Fofana a chance? Said this earlier as well. I think he's more similar to a Jackson type than the other players. So I wouldn't necessarily do that. I think you've signed him for 10 million. I think you can get more than that. I wouldn't be opposed to selling him one. I think he's decent. But yeah, probably not as the second choice for me. He's too one-footed, you said. Super sub last 10 can be a problem. I mean, yeah, you're not wrong in that sense. He's a bit of a nightmare. He had some good games in his first season. Was it against City that he had that amazing first half and then got hooked? No, that's Southampton, but he came on against City and played really well. Jimenez is not the other one, but he's another one that is quite well spoken about. I think Tottenham are in for him as well. Should make a move ahead of the Euros. Italy underdogs and make it all the way. He could have a big part to play for Italy. I don't think they'll go all the way. I think they'll probably go out in the quarters, but I don't disagree with what you're saying in the sense of he could be big there. Striker market just went from very good, interesting options to overpriced shit. Alvarez isn't leaving. All we have left are Solanke, who doesn't fit into our system, and Duran, who barely plays. Yeah, in terms of the options, in terms of name, have gone downhill. But again, something to take into account is you're looking. Don't look too much at the name because at this point, they're looking for the profile over the name and something to add in terms of like they're looking for that raw talent that they believe Duran has. I'm not saying whether that's right or wrong. Again, I like the player, don't like the price at 40 million, but I don't think Duran's as bad as some people think. But I understand that he's not as inspiring as the other names that were linked earlier on. Why did we sign David Washington? He was one of the ones that I don't understand either. Again, didn't do much work about him beforehand, but I think you could have saved that money. So let's see what happens with him in the future. Maybe he excels, maybe he blasts and actually takes off as a player. I'm not so sure yet. Right, so we've done Sorloth and we've done Skamaka. Last player that I want to speak about. Tell me if you've heard of Tus Delinger? Just a quick yes or no in the chat to let me know if you've heard of this man, the 23-year-old striker from Toulouse. I wouldn't mind this, by the way. Angelo and Washington going to Strasbourg and Santos staying. Wouldn't mind that. Nope, you haven't heard of him. No, haven't heard of him. No. He's not one I expect loads of people to have heard of. Yeah, who? There you go. Tus Delinger. And the thing with this one is if you're annoyed about Duran because of just name, then Delinger's not exactly any more inspiring. So I don't expect people to really get behind this one. But again, it's another one where I look at his profile and what he does offer, and it's different. It's different. So, played 33 games in Ligue 1 this season, scored 14 goals, played 8 in the Europa League, scored 4. He's also got 2 assists in the league, 2 assists in the Europa League. He had 14.1 XG and scored 14, so pretty much scoring at his clip for XG. And his aerial percentage, he wins 1.96 aerials per 90, but he has a 55.6 win rate. So in the 93 percentile. So he wins, again, he's box dominant enough that he wins his headers. And he's a nuisance in that sense. I wouldn't say he's like ridiculously strong, but he's a nuisance. And he adds, again, this different aspect of aerial presence. Has scored at a decent clip, like I said, and he probably would be fairly cheap because not many he's a bit of an underground name currently. I don't expect him to be like for ages because again, people do know him, like people that watched Ligue 1, but he's an interesting one. Don't get why people are worried about Duran, to be honest, because even if he doesn't smash it, he's going to be 35 to 40 million, unlike an Osimhen, Alvarez, Gyökeres, who aren't even guaranteed. They're bigger names, though, aren't they? And Osimhen, I still think Osimhen would have been a guaranteed hit. Guaranteed's a bit too far, but I think Osimhen would have raised the profile of the team massively. And I understand people had their doubts with him. So Delinger, as I said, he's the one. Go watch him tonight if you can. Like, again, highlights aren't the best thing to go off of for any footballer, but if you just want to get a slight vibe of what he's like, then of course go and look just to see the sort of player you're looking at. He's another option. Would be cheaper. Would be a punt. His wages are really low, so that wouldn't be an issue. So yeah, again, he offers a different profile. So I think a lot of the main thing to take away when I'm talking about all these things is I want these 3 profiles to be different, and that's something I'm emphasizing on every single point. I want each of these profiles to give me something different in a game. And I think Jackson gives you a lot of channel running ability. He's a nuisance at times. He can drop in, he can go, he can link play, and he's a very good progressive carrier. He can pick it up deep, but also drive the team forward. I think he's explosive in that sense. And Kunku is so technically gifted. He can score from anywhere in and around the box. He's a bit more of a false 9 type, but he would be playing as the out-and-out 9 in this system if he were to play here. Again, he can come in here, link play in this sort of pentagon that I spoke about in my Maresca video. But he can also attack the box, and he's very clever in doing that. Again, offers a different skill set. Then, if you've already got these 2 types, what's left? A box dominant striker. And look who's here. Joe Wright has just recommended the player that we're talking about right here. With a market value of 15 million, 59 goals. Yeah, this is what I was exactly just saying. So if you rewind the stream or go back and watch it when it's a video, you'll see exactly what I just said about him. But that literally pretty much exactly what I just touched on. Scored 14 goals in 14.1 XG as well, as I just said, which for the price you could probably acquire him for is a decent little figure. So as I was saying, I want this striker to offer me different to these 2 and be a box dominant attacking threat that if games get to the point where we're playing, so now I'm going to get rid of this box. I'm going to put all these guys up here. So as I said, they offer different things. This striker, I want to offer me that box threat. If we're attacking late in games and we're putting these balls into the box, I want that to be curved. He we need somebody who's a bit more of a box threat and presence than a Jackson. Because Jackson, as much as he can do it and he can be a nuisance, I wouldn't call him a massive box threat. And again, he scored some headers towards the end of the season, but he doesn't have that exact gravity about him. I think Duran has those physical qualities to be that. So again, with Delinger, I think it's similar. That's why I want that type to be the third acquiration. That doesn't sound right. Acquisition of the forward line, and Sesko would have done this too. So it's a shame he's not going to be about. But like I say, late in games, that's the option against low blocks. That's what you need to do. He wins those from what I've seen. Yeah, agree. He does. He does. Brozier sale for 20-30, then Duran for 40 million doesn't sound too bad. If you can get rid of Brozier for 40 and you can get Duran for 35 or 30, if you can do Brozier for 30 and then get Duran in for 30, that's good, as far as I see it, because I think that's an improvement on the squad. And they get a player in that they want, which you get. And the sport directors, mainly Joe Shields, and like obviously a lot of his ones have been hit. They deserve a tiny bit of, I don't know if credit's even the word, but trust, in the sense of these these lower end 30 million signings, or like 25 to 30 million signings that are almost they're not hidden gems, because Palmer wasn't a hidden gem, but they're players that aren't necessarily getting the credit that some would think they deserve, and they think they can take that jump at Chelsea. So if they think Duran is that, and again, I like the player, don't like the 40 million price tag, then I don't mind that punt if you can get the price down and you can make good deals in other positions where the money you're saving on Duran then has a direct effect. If the money you save on Duran allows you to go and upgrade here, not upgrade, because Fofana, if he's fit, is brilliant, but get another player in here for when Fofana, if Fofana isn't fit, then it has its pros even outside of just the striker area. It has a knock-on effect down the squad. So that's something to pay attention to. So now that I've got this just on screen like this, as the lineup is, I'll take a few questions about Duran specifically, if anybody has them on how Duran could work in this system and that sort of aspect. We'll do 15 minutes of questions maybe before I end. Yeah, again, he is different with that sort of goal scoring record. Again, like Sorloth, like I said earlier, probably not the one that they go near. Chukwuemeka, Lavia, Santos, Cucurella as a backup to your midfield. Yeah, so I think Carney probably plays here. Santos probably in the end. That's the thing, because Lavia can play both of these roles, the Casado and the Enzo. And I also think Santos can play both of those roles. So, again, it depends how their sort of profile. But yeah, you're not wrong there. Cucurella inverting from the left, or Gusto, because I think Gusto can play this role so well. So well. I spoke about this in another stream that I did a little while ago. I think people are limiting Gusto, thinking he can only do this outside job. I think no, not a chance. Gusto has got by far enough technical ability to play in this area of the pitch. If Santos comes back and we have inverted fullbacks, Casado, Enzo, Gallagher, who might not leave, I think he will, but yeah, I agree, like it's possible. Palmer, Carney, Casado, Ugachukwu, where's Santos going to fit into the team? Ugachukwu, I think Santos gets a more likely to get a spot than Ugachukwu, because I think Ugachukwu, if Lavi is fit, that's Ugachukwu will probably go on loan, if you can sort of have that. Castaday, I think, would be more of a sub again in this 8 area late in games, but again, he'll probably play a lot with the 21s and maybe could go out on loan depending how fit the squad is kept. Again, Santos, he's a good option to have where you can put in between those two roles, the 8 and the 6. So he is good. How good is Duran on the ball? I spoke about this earlier with the notes that I'd made on him previously. I think he's good on the ball. He has a tendency to take the odd heavy touch, but again, his physical prowess can sometimes bail him out in that sense. He's good enough to drop in here and make a play happen. Again, he's got a pretty close in terms of like his chest control. He'll bring something down, or even with his head and like how he uses his body to protect the ball. So even if he drops in deep, he can protect the ball well in these deep areas to then lay it off and go. So he's good enough. He's to do that. And again, on the ball, in terms of when he's dribbling with the ball and like little neat touches, he does have them in his locker because he was a winger initially in his academy systems. So he is decent enough on the ball. I think Chelsea are after these players because of their high height and set pieces. Elise very good. Yeah, I said this the other day as well. Toss in and Elise straight away. That's two set piece specialists. You've also gone and got Cueva, the new set piece coach analyst. So having him in and those two big pieces for set pieces, big pieces of the puzzle for set pieces. So yeah, I agree. If you can get another box dominant striker in to add height, you can get another left back / left centre back hybrid or right centre back. Like I said, again, that offers a bit more height in the team. Then these are all pieces of the puzzle for the new set piece coach to work with. So yeah, I agree with that. And Badia Shield is actually Kukurea back up in defence. Badia Shield, yes. Kukurea, I think, will play a lot. I think he'll be liked. Again, sometimes I think he'll probably play as the left centre back. Sometimes probably the inverter. I think you could see a few different roles for Kukurea. Disasi, this is why I think Disasi for me doesn't, unless he proves he can play this role, the central centre back, I don't really want him here in the right centre back. So if anything, I think Chalobah plays it, or if he's sold, that's why you definitely need, in my opinion, a right centre back. Because if Fafana's not fit, I don't want Disasi to be the starter there. So I think a right centre back is needed, especially if Chalobah's gone. What is my thought on Chilwell on this current squad? I don't think he'll be sold because I think they see him as an important member of the dressing room, and maybe not quite got the value, or not even value, but like the attention and interest that he maybe needs to be sold. So I can see him sort of staying as a back member, sort of a fringe on the fringes of the squad. Sometimes comes on, always on the bench, comes on late in games. Sometimes goes into a back five, maybe at like late in games to sort of be this left wing back. Sometimes maybe comes on and inverts if we're a couple of goals up, and he can come in and sort of play that role. Again, it's not the best of roles, but if we're a few goals up, he's not completely unable. Some cup games, so I think he'll be on the fringes. Fitting and Kunku, yeah, again, I've spoke about this the whole time. I think he can play literally. I think he's a Swiss Army knife. I think he can play on the left. I think he can play up front. I think he can play in the eight. I think he can play on the right. I wouldn't necessarily want it, but I think he can play anywhere. So that is the issue with Nkunku. Let's see how he's profiled in pre-season. You watched Leicester's games, did Maresca? I did. I watched 11 in about 3 days, so a lot. Did Maresca really not have a plan B? Plan A wasn't working. He has a lot of different plans. If anything, he has plan C, D, E, F, and so on. The only thing is they are within that structure. So yes, his inverted fullbacks will continue to invert. Yes, they will still play the possession type football, and it is all within that same structure, but things will change within it. They will change personnel. They will switch things. So the inverted player will push higher up to create, obviously, what sometimes then looks like this. I spoke about this the other day as well, where the other fullback inverts, one of them pushes up as an 8, and you sort of end up with a 2-2-5-1. There is lots of different chess moves, as he likes to call them, that he uses. So the whole thing about him not having other plans, in my opinion, is not correct. It's just that they follow structure. Chilwell, Madrid, Gusto, Manueke, play fullback, winger, rotate. Again, I think this could be Sterling. I don't really want Chilwell playing on the wing, no, but I think again he'll come off the bench in games to have an impact. Madueke and Gusto, again, Gusto, if anything, he's playing the James role. He's going to either play right centre back or the inverted role. So he'll be in rotation with James because I like him for that. I think he's brilliant in this role. I think he'll really thrive in here. And I think a lot of people will change their minds on whether he can do it or not. Reece could play as a right centre back. Yes, he could. And again, this is something I could see. I could see if he's not there, he could play here. That could still set up like that. And then that could just be, this could be Kukurea, for example, alongside Enzo. So yeah, that is an option. Sterling was in the video thumbnail. Yeah, he was. Again, these are pre-prepared thumbnails for the tactics talk. I just have like 5 pre-prepared ones. He was the one that made the most sense to probably have on there just because he's an attacker. that I'd already had made. But does he have a chance to play somewhere? Yeah, he could easily start the season where Mudryk is here. I've said in a few streams before, I don't think Mudryk starts the season. I think he'll take time to integrate into this. I think if anything, it's going to be either Nkunku starting out on the left or Sterling starting out on the left, with Mudryk coming in later on. So yeah, he definitely. And if Sterling's playing well, he won't get dropped. So if he's not sold, expect him to play a big part this season under Maresca, at least for the first half of the season, until I think Mudryk sort of works into it a bit better. When people say plan B, they mean long balls into the box hoping for a header. Yeah, and again, like, he won't just launch long balls from deep. He'll still want to work the ball up, but will they increase at times the crossing tendencies? Will they say, let's try and get more balls into the box? If that's what's been identified that can work, if you're against a defence that isn't great at defending the box and you want the back post to be attacked further, you want, and like I said, a box present striker, you bring them on the pitch, you have your eights pushed high, Palmer's tall, you have him, and you increase the volume of crosses, he'll do that. It's just how you build the ball to this area that isn't going to be, it's not exactly going to be that unless it's on. There's a lot of things that Maresca does, and it's not one-dimensional at all. It's just within structure, which is normal. Agutter. Who does he play for? By name, that doesn't ring a bell. What happens to Kepa? I'm worried that he probably gets a chance, but hopefully he's sold, because I think Sanchez and Petrovic is better. I think the Kepa wages, the wage you have Kepa on, isn't worth keeping him with the squad structure. And again, but I am worried he'll get a chance with Sanchez because he does fit more than Petrovic in that sense of building up from the back. But let's wait and see. Do you see Mudryk fitting into this? Can't decide if he's just the worst football IQ I've ever seen or he needs a manager. Yeah, and I've said this as well. I think he does need the IQ for it. Not the IQ, the instruction. I think he needs to just be told. And that's why I think he'll take half a season, because I know that he's integrated already into the squad and he's had the time to do that. But in a new system, I think he needs strict instruction. And he needs to learn the role perfectly. And then I think he can thrive here. So, yeah. How could the team be with Nkunku and Jackson as options for the 9 role? So if you take Duran away, I still think this is fine, just having these two as just options. But I don't think you're getting enough. Like I said, I think you need a box dominant striker. Unless Jackson adds that to his game, he bulks up his upper body a bit. Like I said, I've said this before in likes to Jackson. I think he's quite close to offering you similar things that Gyökeres had. If you add a little bit of composure to his game, a little bit more frequency of an ability to compose himself in these situations in the box in 1v1 scenarios, when he has to think more about the finish, and he bulks up his upper body in order to help him with certain duels in the box in the air. They're the two things. So if that happens, I still think you need another body is my thing, because if these two are only options and Nkunku gets another injury and Jackson's your one striker throughout the whole season and you can't rest him, you can't sub him, you're stuck. That's why a third striker, even if it isn't a number 1, is even if it's not going to be straight in, then you need this. Sleeping on Alex Matos. Again, could be solid rotation in the future, yeah. But again, like if you've got Lavia, you've got Carney, you've got Santos, where does he come in yet? And I agree, probably another loan first, then maybe assess him again. But I kind of agree in the sense of you don't really hear about him a lot, and he did do really well at Huddersfield on loan. So yeah, I don't necessarily disagree. This one, what was the one? Left back, centre back, and right centre back. So I'd put them into 2 roles. The 2 roles I'd identify. Go watch my transfer targets video actually, because I uploaded it the other day. I would say I'll tell you my number 1 for each, but the rest of them are in that video, so I'll leave that for you to go and watch. I'd say left back / left centre back role, Calafiori, right centre back, Diamande. They're my 2. But go watch the video because it has stats and everything about them in detail. Again, I don't think that's likely. I think Matos needs another loan. One of the most detailed and well-researched football creators I've seen. Awesome work. Thank you very much. I do try. Like I say, a lot of the work. I do a lot of work before I do this stuff anyway, but where I'm writing articles, analysing things for other like researchers and websites that I write for. So the analysis part comes naturally from when I've worked for clubs in the past and gone to uni to do performance analysis. And now I'm trying to put it all into the content sphere. So I really do appreciate the support because it helps push me on in that sense and help more people see the work, which I am quite proud of. Can Matson invert? Should we retain him? I'd love to retain him. I think he could definitely invert, but it with that release clause doesn't look like it's going to happen. Doesn't look like it's going to happen. So unless anybody has more questions, like one or two more questions on Duran, I'm probably going to let this go. It's nearly been going for an hour and a half, which feels nothing like that because again, I really enjoy these streams. Time flies doing these, so give it a few more minutes. I'll do a few more questions and then we will leave it. Let me refresh. Let me see. How many likes are we on? 44. If you haven't liked, can we try and get this to 50 before I end? Can we get this to 50 likes before I end the stream? I'm going to refresh it a few times to see if we can get there. That would be amazing. If you haven't already liked, please do. All of this only works if medical debt. Yeah, and again, right, so let's talk about this medical thing quickly, just because you've mentioned it. The one thing, another massive part for me about bringing in Maresca is that by having this style of football compared to a chaotic, end-to-end, high-intensity sprint type football, is you are preserving legs. And again, I'll come back to my tactics board to talk about this. When you are rotating the ball in possession and you're bouncing the ball and you're in possession for 60 to 65%, because this is what Maresca wants, this is your resting time. This is low-intensity sprinting, possessing the ball for longer periods, and you're in control where they can't hurt you. So there's two positives to that, right? However, when you lose the ball, that's the high intensity part of the game. That's when you quickly regain. Then you can, once you've regained it, you can either attack quickly if the chance is there, which again can create those transitional moments, or you bounce backwards and you get back into that system of let's keep the ball, let's progress slower, let's rest as we do it. And we are in control. They will be more tired than us. So that can help with injuries because it's less chaotic. Like I say, with Poch's football, I always describe it as unsustainable. That's how I see that type of football. I think high turnover, low, again, it can work in big games because it can produce results. But I think long term, it does have its effects in terms of injuries and players are affected by it with that intensity level of constantly losing the ball, having to regain it constantly. You lose the ball again, have to regain. And yeah, I think that plays its toll over a whole season. Why is Chelsea going for Duran? Please just Alvarez, Elise and Somerville. I sort of said it again in my last stream when I spoke more about Alvarez. I think Alvarez just offers too much that you've already got with these two. And again, if Alvarez is on the table and you can get him, I don't even disagree that you should because he is just that good that if Alvarez is your starting striker, you make the rest work. He's got elite ball striking and you make it work. But I think if you're being clever in where you spread your funds, I think you do it differently. But again, I would never complain because I think Alvarez is top draw. Don't you think Chelsea can make Caicedo and Enzo play deeper? Yeah, I've spoke about this a few times as well. I do. I think there's a chance that so the argument always is that these players, Maresca wants them to be out and out wingers because that's more of it's suboptimal to play your fullbacks out there. But if you have a player like Reece or Gusto to occupy that area, then all of a sudden you can play these two here. Let's just say Nkunku for now. And you can sort of create this instead. The only problem with that is Reece then has to do the job in possession of a winger. He can't be here. He has all the time. He has to pin, so he has to be high. If anything, the striker drops deeper. These are the high two. So that's the only bit because they'd be so far out of the game. The distance is spread. There'd be a lot more emphasis on this area and even here for these. So maybe it'd probably have to be this way in that sense, so that he can track into this area because Caicedo's more able and has done that in the past, being the right back. So it's not out of the question. But I think we're more likely to see this. At least that's where I'm at right now with how I think we could see it. Deeper next to Casado or higher up, neither. I think the better. Well, I mean, if it's one of the two, Casado in there with him, but I think Enzo with the inverted fullback, with Casado as the box-to-box 8, is the most optimal for getting the best out of everyone. The more I hear you start to make sense of Duran as an option, he's 19 off as a differential, can play it. Exactly. He's a different type, and this is the main thing I'm trying to say. He's not rushed. Yes, it'll probably be a fairly good fee for Villa to coop in for him, but he's got the potential, and like I say, he allows Jackson to stay as that main man. So you're putting faith in Jackson, whilst also bringing in another option that offers you something different. So I think whilst it empowers Jackson, it also improves the team or the squad. Maybe not the team. Maybe the squad is a better way to look at that. It's an interesting one. Because I come from both perspectives and get rid of the Linger, even though I think he's a good option. I think it's an interesting one. I think there's a lot of different perspectives you can come at with this, because I think when you're linked with Osimhen, you're linked with Sesko, you're linked with who's the other one? Osimhen, Sesko, Alvarez as another example. Of course, you're going to be disappointed when those names disappear, and then you end up with Duran, who's barely played for Villa. And even like Ferguson is another one that always gets plopped into the conversation. Again, another one that I really like the player, but he's even more outrageous for the fee. Ferguson, you're looking at 80 odd million. Again, he's got a great archetype of a striker, but just way outside the ballpark of what you'd pay. Again, if you could get Ferguson for 35 to 40 million, I'd probably do that as well. Because again, the type is there, but it's just the price. They'd want 80 odd. Nowhere near that. Nowhere near are you going to pay that for him. So that's sort of where I'm at with the striker situation. Palmer false 9, not for me. I think when you was playing him last season as the false 9, I think some games it worked because he could drop off and become the 10 with the others progressing behind him. I think in this situation, you're either playing Kunku as the false 9 and Palmer's like this 8 position is perfect for Palmer. I would not move him out of this position all season if he's not injured. He would be my starting attacking number 8, and he would thrive there. He would be like the main man from that area of the pitch. So, and again, of course, he can do this, which I'm going to speak about tomorrow with my Elise video, which will be coming out tomorrow, which speaks about the dynamic of these two switching every now and again. But yeah, Palmer can absolutely smash it from there. Do you think our disciplinary record will improve Maresca compared to under Poch? Yeah, probably, because youth they've also aged a year. They've had that in there. They've sort of experienced it as well for a whole season. They've sort of gone through the motions. But also, like you said, like there's less turnovers, so there's less need for constant duels. Like Pochettino's football breeds duels, whereas this type of football still has a lot of duels in it to regain possession quickly. But yeah, the yellow card numbers should go down, theoretically. Don't you think Elise and Palmer overlap too much? But they can switch like KDB, Silva and Foden. I don't think they overlap too much, no, because I think Elise in this system would be told to pin high, and then only when the motion is like when they're in motion, it would be if Elise receives sort of here on the pitch and he drives inside, that's when Palmer sort of drags away, and that creates what looks like a switch of position, but it's actually just an in motion sort of. If any of you watch basketball, you could sort of describe it as like a set, like it's sort of an attacking set that is almost created between these two players to help each other. Is it possible to have Nkunku and Palmer in the half spaces? Yes, only if you play one of the fullbacks though as a high and wide winger from the fullback position, which again I spoke about that a minute ago. I think it has its issues. But we are going to leave that there for today because I think I've spoken enough about Duran. We've been going for an hour and a half, and yeah, I need to start working on my Elise video for tomorrow, which I'm going to start producing tonight as well because I want to get that done. And then on Thursday, we're going to have a long Euro stream speaking about I'm going to break down every single team for the Euro, not every single team, every single favourite for the Euros. So I think we've got the 6 favourites. And then I've also got my own pick for a underdog. So I'm doing 17 breakdowns on Thursday for the international football for Euro 2024. And yeah, we're gonna speak about all of that and more on Thursday. Gusto would be great as a high fullback. Yeah, amazing one-on-one. I agree with that too. So once again, thank you all for joining the stream. Please do drop a like if you haven't already. As I said earlier, it does really help me out. Thanks for joining. And as I said, video out tomorrow. Check that out. Then stream again Thursday. Make sure you're here for that. Subscribe if you haven't already. And thanks everyone for joining the stream. See you guys next time.